In a time in a time when religions are once again captured by fear and confusion, when religions are used to sanction and excuse the basest desires of humankind, one man stands upon the mountaintop and calls to humanity in a clear and unwavering voice, saying, "I have the truth." Ignore this man. Listen to this man instead.
It's time to think for yourself.
Yeah. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the national headquarters of the Theosophical Society in America. My name is John Chianchosi. I'm the Director of Public Programs. And at this time, I'd like you to turn off your cell phones and other noise-making electronic devices. This evening's presentation is being streamed live, and so I welcome friends watching through the internet as well. The Theosophical Society promotes study, meditation, and service. We encourage open-minded inquiry into the world religions, philosophy, science, and the arts. And we have a deep respect for the unity of all life. Our goal is to help people explore the spiritual path so as to arrive at a deeper understanding regarding the wisdom of the ages. Furthermore, we feel this wisdom is not limited to any one tradition. And thus we offer programs from all traditions. I invite you to take one of our program brochures where you will find the listing of programs being offered through the spring and summer. You will also find these programs on our website, and there you can register for any of the programs that may be of interest to you. And that applies especially to workshops and retreats, where we do encourage people to register in advance. Now, the Theosophical Society is a membership organization, but it is an open forum, and everybody is always welcome to come for any of the programs and take advantage of any of the resources that we have here, including our library, bookshop, and of course the wonderful parkland that we have, and especially at this time of year as the weather improves, please come and enjoy it. Of course, we're always happy to welcome new members. If you're not, and you're in agreement with the mission of the organization, you may consider joining. It's the best way to support the work that we do here. Now, this evening, I'm very happy to have with us once again someone who was here about this time last year and was so well received that I immediately extended an invitation for him to return, and that is Rabbi Rami Shapiro. And I'll just tell you a little about him. He's an award-winning author of over 30 books on religion and spirituality. He's also professor of religious studies, a student of the Ramakrishna order of Vedanta Hinduism, excuse me, and a congressional rabbi. He also directs the One River Foundation for the Study of Perennial Wisdom and heads its World Wisdom Bible Project. He writes monthly columns for the Spirituality and Health magazine and hosts a weekly podcast. Now, this evening, he's going to speak to us on Holy Rascals, Advice for Spiritual Revolutionaries, which is a talk based on his new book. And in case I did not do justice to my introduction, or I did not do justice to Rabbi Rami with my introduction, I've got help. Harry, please.
In a time when religions are once again captured by fear and confusion, when religions are used to sanction and excuse the basest desires of humankind, one man stands upon the mountaintop and calls to humanity in a clear and unwavering voice, saying, "I have the truth." Ignore this man. Listen to this man instead.
It's time to think for yourself.
that great or what? So yeah, sounds true as the publisher. They did a nice job promoting the book. I want to talk to you about, you want me up here? Okay, now I feel more superior. So I want to talk to you about this idea of holy rascality, and you've got a copy of the Holy Rascal Manifesto that we're going to go through. But let me just sort of lay out the larger vision here. If you read the newspaper, any newspaper that deals with what's happening around the globe, you find that religion is once again, and has been for quite some time, at the forefront of some of the most horrific things that human beings do. And the things that we're doing in the name of religion. So just the other day, there's this big court case going on in India about the rape of this 8-year-old Muslim girl by this gang of Hindus. They raped her in a Hindu temple, according to what I read in the newspaper today. And they're being defended by Hindu lawyers who are blocking the courthouse, trying to keep the trial from moving forward. And the argument is that they're doing this to save their religion from the influence of Hinduism, from influence of Islam. Similar thing is going on in Burma with Myanmar, with the Buddhists there going after the Rohingya. In this country, now I don't know about Chicago, but my guess is Wheaton may have a tinge of this. But I don't know about here, but where I live in the middle of Tennessee, Christianity is the dominant religion, and the form of Christianity that's the dominant form is incredibly fear-driven, and they're focused on two things. One is avoiding hell, which is probably a good idea. And the other is trying to resist the takeover of the state of Tennessee by Islam, which is probably a waste of time, because that's never going to happen. We don't have enough Tennessee Muslims. They're not going to pull this off. They don't even think about doing it. But if you can get people frightened of other people, and you can hold up your religion as the way to avoid the terror that you're scaring them with, it's a powerful tool to keep people in the pews. So what holy rascality is about is challenging that kind of religion. And you see it going on in Israel all the time. Wherever there's a religion that becomes the state religion, whether it's official or not, when the religion and nationality come together and they don't see a difference, you end up with very frightening things going on. So I call that kind of religion big religion. Like we talk about big pharma and big agriculture. Big religion. It's the brand name religions when they are all about scaring people and using fear as a tool to get people to do whatever the respective their religion is asking them to do. The way Holy Rascals pushes back on that is through humor. It seems to me that one of the things there's two things that religion fears most, big religion, organized religion. Two things that organized religion fears most: love and laughter. They don't like love. The first thing a religion does when it becomes a religion is it decides who you can love. Right? Oh, you can love this person, but you can't love that person. I mean, I grew up in a Jewish home where if you didn't love a Jewish person, you were only allowed to love a Jewish person. You were only allowed to marry a Jewish person. In Israel, I don't think it's legal for a Jewish person to marry a non-Jewish person. The idea that you can fall in love with someone who doesn't carry the same brand name religion as you do frightens the establishment, because they know that you can't beat love. Right? If you fall in love, we call it falling in love. No one, sits down and says, okay, here's a list of people that are kosher for me to date and kosher for me to marry. You don't usually do that. And if you do, maybe you'll find somebody, but maybe if you opened yourself up to the wider world of humanity, you might find others who don't fit that mold. So love is one of the things that religions hate. The other thing is laughter. I don't know how many of you have read or seen the movie Name of the Rose? If you haven't seen the movie, it's a Sean Connery movie, so I say you have to see the movie. I know the book is better, but the book doesn't have Sean Connery in it. So the premise, this is an Umberto Eco book. And the premise, it's a Sherlock Holmes kind of story, detective story. It's a mystery set in the Middle Ages in a monastery, Catholic monastery. And someone is killing off the monks. And Sean Connery, I don't know what his character's name in the book is, but he's a Franciscan and he's coming for some conclave, and then they discover the monks are being murdered. And it turns out he happens to be a great detective also, and he solves the crime. But at the heart of the crime is the conceit of the book. I don't know if it's historically accurate. That Aristotle, who was very powerful, very popular in Christianity at that time, that Aristotle wrote a book supporting humor. And they don't want monks to read this book. Because if the monks would read a book and see that their hero, Aristotle, was okay with humor, they might become okay with humor, and religion fears humor. Because if you go into a church or a synagogue or a mosque or a temple or whatever, and you start laughing, it's not like they're happy about it. I once went to, I was invited to Occidental College in California, and I was asked to give a talk there. It was a commencement speech, and my theme was humor in the Bible. And my basic premise was, when weird things happen in the Bible, things that cannot actually happen in the real world, given the limits of human biology, namely having Sarah give birth to Isaac at the age of 90, or having a virgin give birth at all, I was arguing in that case that these are put in there to make you laugh, to make you to sort of, what? And you start to laugh at it because it's absurd. Not that you're laughing to diminish it, but the laughter is reflecting the fact that the author of the story is saying, here comes something absolutely new, unique, unprecedented. And so even in the Bible, Sarah laughs when she hears it. So I gave this talk and I said, well, if Sarah could laugh, we all could laugh at it. Maybe that's what you're supposed to do. So I'm up there on the stage. Behind me is the clergy, the clergy team from the university. And there is a Catholic priest there. I don't see any of them. I turn around once in a while to include them, but I'm not really paying attention to them. I'm paying attention to the audience. And I have a friend in the audience who drove me there. And she's trying to signal me that I'm bombing. That this is not going over well at all. That I'm talking about laughter in the context of religion, and all of these religious people behind me have no sense of humor, and this is not working. And specifically, the Catholic priest is fuming. When it was over, they have a receiving line. So I go into the receiving line, and I'm supposed to, because they told me what the protocol was. I'm supposed to stand next to the Catholic priest. He refused to even enter the receiving line. I was all by myself, which is fine. I mean, you just say how you feel. But I didn't understand how bad it was. This fellow came up, and he bothered to come and see me, and he didn't shake my hand, but he said, I just want you to know, you have destroyed my faith. So not getting it, I thought that was sort of absurd. And so I said, very lightly, and I thought politely, I said, well, your faith couldn't have been very deep if I could knock it out in 45 minutes. That did not help. But the fear of laughter is palpable in lots of places. So holy rascals use laughter. That's our primary method for challenging religious teachings. And I'll give you some examples of that a little bit later. So we're like spiritual pranksters. We go around and there's, when I say we, it's not just me and the book. We actually created the Order of the Holy Rascal, where you can go and get ordained. It turns out the foundation I created several years ago, the One River Foundation, we created it as a religious institution. I mean, I didn't do it. The lawyers set it all up and I just signed papers. It's a religious institution with the capacity to ordain clergy. So when I found that out, I thought, oh, this will be fun. We'll do a one-day or a weekend ordination training. And people come. We've got about 30 people who have done it so far, and we've done it only once. But we've got 5 of them lined up around the country over the next 6 or 7 months. And people come, they learn all about this stuff, they learn how to do the humor part. And then we ordain them, and they can literally and legally do weddings and other life cycle events. So I'm hoping that this is going to become a huge movement, hundreds of thousands of holy rascals. But I'd be satisfied if it just sold enough books to, pay my advance back. So, love and laughter, if I'm right, and I think I am, love and laughter are the key things to resist this madness that has captured religion and is being used in the general society to promote fascism, to promote what I would consider just evil things, and to give it the patina of sanctity by saying, no, God wants this to happen. This is God's will. What I find in Tennessee anyway, and I fly out of Nashville, but I live in a much smaller town. And it's a very red town. Nashville is pretty blue. It's a very red town, and it's a very fundamentalist Christian town. And while I have no problems there, I'm invited to lots of churches and things, and they sort of enjoy my antics or whatever it is. But what I find is that, and I found it in the university too, as a professor of religion, the students who come to the university from the area and the people I meet who live in the area and go to church in the area, if you ask them what their fundamental concern is, it's hell. They're just afraid of going to hell. So I always say, look, I've got a clear way out, become Jewish. We don't have this problem, we don't worry about it. But that's usually not a big draw. They don't want to do that. I went to I don't know what they called it, but I called it in my head a battle of the baptisms. So I'm using Christianity as my example, but I could do it with any religion. It's just this is where I live. So I went to a battle of the baptisms where they had a Lutheran minister and a Baptist minister and a Methodist minister, a variety of Protestants, or what they would call Christians. Because if you're Eastern Orthodox or Catholic, you're not Christians, you're Eastern Orthodox or Catholic. So Christians are Protestants. And they were discussing who has the true baptism. And they all explained how they do it and why they do it the way they do it. And all of them but one said, but it doesn't really matter. If you're a Presbyterian and you join a Methodist church, we accept the baptism you had as a Presbyterian and we just welcome you into our church. The Baptist, Southern Baptist, disagreed. He said, there's only one baptism, we have it. If you are a Methodist and you join our church, you have to be baptized because you were never baptized, you had a bath. But you weren't baptized. And so they went around, and everyone was very polite. And then somebody asked from the audience, well, what happens to someone who's not a Christian when they die? So everyone knew what that meant. They meant me, because there's just a handful of there's a lot of Muslims, but as far as in this group, I was the only non-Christian. And so everyone literally just turned and looked at me, like, okay, what happens to this guy? So none of the pastors wanted to say, because they didn't want to upset me. But I don't believe in any of that stuff. So I said, it's fine, just what's your theory? So they all hemmed and hawed, but the Lutheran guy got up and he looked at me and he said, nothing personal. It's like, but when you die, if you haven't accepted Jesus, you're going to burn in hell for all eternity. And then there was this hush that fell over the room, and the moderator said, let's break for coffee. Because if you're going to go to hell, you might as well have a good cup of coffee before you go. So I was fine with it. I don't worry about hell. I don't have that kind of belief. I don't believe that God does that. I don't believe in that kind of God at all. But many people in that room did, and they were upset on my behalf. So a couple of other pastors came over who were not on the panel, and they said, you know, that guy is very extreme, he's very fundamentalist. That's not the only Christian position. I said, okay, so what are my alternatives? And they said there are two basic positions, what they called the annihilationist position and what they called the eternalist position. Now, the Lutheran who said I was going to burn in hell for all eternity is an eternalist, that I will, when I die, my soul will go to hell, and I'll be tortured on behalf of the God of love for all eternity. But they said that's really extreme. The liberal position, they said, is the annihilationist position. And that means that I'll go to hell, and I'll be tortured for a long time, but eventually the fires of hell will simply annihilate me, and I will no longer exist. And if I remember right, just recently, the Pope said something very similar. He tried to get rid of this notion of hell, and he said those who are hell-bound actually simply cease to exist. There's no Satan poking you and all the things that were in Dante's Inferno. That no longer applies. So those are my two choices. I spend eternity being tortured, or I spend a long time being tortured, and then I'm burned up. I mean, obviously, the annihilationist one is the better one. I mean, if you have a choice, that's what you're going to go for. But there is another way out, and my Protestant friends didn't accept it, but I said, I like the Mormon way. So Mormon, the Church of of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they have Pothamus baptism. You know what that is? Right? They'll baptize you after you're dead. They don't need you there, right? And what happens is, and I love this, I think this is great. When I die, because I haven't accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, I will go to hell. But, and I've already got this set up, if I have a Mormon friend who submit my name to be posthumously baptized, somebody, if not my friend, somebody will be baptized in my name. I mean, I'm dead, but they'll get baptized in my place. And I'll be in hell, but when the baptism happens, an angel comes and finds me in hell and says, you've been baptized posthumously as a Mormon. If you accept the baptism, I'm going to take you to heaven. And if you don't, you get to stay here in hell. Well, I'm accepting it. I mean, if they're right, if that's how it works, well, thank you very much. Let's go. You know, why would I stay down here? And my Jewish friends go, where's your integrity? That's an integrity. You can have your integrity and burn in hell. I'm going to be nice and comfortable in heaven, and you can keep my integrity. I don't care. I want to be on the winning team. That's all I really care about. But the fact that we have these kinds of theologies, that there is a winning team, is ludicrous to me. It just makes no sense. I mean, it makes sense from a historical perspective, and it makes sense when you're living in isolated tribes around the world and you don't really have a lot of interaction. But in the 21st century, in a globalist world, the notion that Jews, who make up just a few million people, are the chosen people and everyone else is not, that's absurd. I mean, it's great marketing, but it's bad theology, right? To think that the God who created the entire universe chose the Jewish people among all the other people on the planet. And we say this every week when we bless the Torah. You go up and you say the blessing of the Torah. You say, Bachar banu mikol ha'amim. And he, God, chose us from among all the peoples to receive the Torah. Now, liberal rabbis might say, well, yeah, he chose the Jews, and it's always he. Right? It's always he. God is always he. He chose the Jews to get the Torah, and he chose the Christians to get Jesus, and he chose the Muslims to get the Quran. That's not what Judaism says. That's liberal rabbis who have got to make peace with their neighbors. So they came up with this liberal understanding. But the fact is, according to Judaism's own worldview, there's one God who chose one people to receive God's singular, never to be repeated revelation, the Torah. We got it. If you're not Jewish, you don't. Buddha, nice guy, enlightenment, maybe good, who knows, I have no idea. Irrelevant. because there's one God, he chose me, I got the Torah. If you're not on my team, you're out. Now, if you're trying to grow your team, that's a good marketing thing. It's like when Coca-Cola says, or calls itself the real thing. It's not a marketing thing they use anymore, but most of us are old enough to remember that. Coke used to say, Coke, the real thing, or it's the real thing. It's brown sugar water, no different than Pepsi or Dr. Pepper, any of the other ones, but it's the real thing. I mean, what would they say? Coke, it's the imitation thing. I mean, no one's going to do that. I love Indian restaurants where they always say, authentic Indian food. What are they going to say? Inauthentic Indian food. I mean, not that I would know the difference, but still, they don't advertise that way. So the Jews are the chosen people. Only Christians get saved. The Muslims have the final revelation from God given through the angel Gabriel to Muhammad, peace be upon him. And the Hindus have the Dharma that comes from before time, and the Buddhists have Buddha, who is the enlightened one, and we're all trying to be Buddhists. Everyone's marketing their thing as best they can. But to me, that's all it is. It's just marketing. And we have to get beyond the marketing, because you can see what happens to big religion when it takes its marketing literally, and then it gets caught up in all kinds of violence in the name of its own imaginary God, its own imaginary philosophy. Religion is made up. That's maybe controversial for some people, but I would say religion is made up by people. Excuse me. Religion is made up by people, and we could do a better job at it. Right? I mean, one of the mottos of the Theosophical Society is, there is no religion higher than truth. That's the most rascally thing I think you can imagine. Because every religion says it's higher than truth. Because it says it's the truth, and when you show them the truth with a bigger the, right, they reject it. The only person I know, and I may be wrong about this, about him being unique, but the Dalai Lama once said that if science and Buddhism were in conflict, and science was proven science, and science or Buddhism were in conflict, then he would go with science and change the Buddhism. So that's a pretty radical statement. I don't know any fundamentalists, rabbis or imams who are going to say that their truth trumps the truth of science. I'm not saying science is the absolute be-all and end-all of truth, but my point is that religions, each one operates in a box, and if you can show them the truth is outside their box, they're not about to open the box. They're going to make the walls all the more thick to keep the truth out. They're afraid of anything that's outside their frame. So Holy Rascals are trying to address that, to push back on that. Not in a didactic way, getting up and haranguing religion. I mean, that doesn't do any good. But by just using humor to poke fun at what people take so seriously. So let me give you a couple of examples. So one of the things that we teach people how to do is to hack the teachings of the hack theology, to take it's a straw argument. We take the silliest things that religions say, and then we try to show you how silly they really are. So, for example, these are just some standard statements. Not everyone who worships the dead and risen Lord is a follower of Jesus. Some are followers of Osiris. No Egyptian religion people in. So the first line is the standard line, and then I add my little piece to it. It will cost you more to say no to God than to say yes. But remember, you get what you pay for. God helps those who help themselves. God is redundant. All right, so well, that got you, right, that one? There's, I don't know if it's in the book, but there's one that says, when God closes the door, God opens a window. God loves a draft. I mean, these things are just they're so silly. I'll just give you one more. Hard times aren't hurdles on the road to God. They are the road. And then I wrote, God, like the rest of us, hates paying for infrastructure repair. So, you see a lot of these things on church marquee signs. You see them, especially in Tennessee, at least in Tennessee I'm most familiar, on billboards. You know, there's always, it doesn't seem to matter which highway I take out of town, I'm eventually going to see the billboard that says, Jesus is the answer. You know, and I want to go underneath and say, the question is, what is a common Mexican name? You know, something like that. To just sort of make people stop and think. That's all I'm trying to, just stop and think. But we don't usually do that. So those are pretty mild. Then we have something else called thou hast mail. So thou hast mail, this is obviously from AOL days, when if you had an AOL account, that's America Online for those of you who were born after AOL was defunct. But, you know, they used to say, you have mail. That little voice would come on and say, you have mail. So I decided to create a thing called thou hast mail, not thou being God. And I tried to channel Art Linkletter. You know, kids say the darndest things. But the kids I wanted to talk to were the kids that are featured on South Park cartoon show. The snarky 8-year-old kids who know that the emperor is wearing no clothes, who have pulled the curtain back behind the great and terrible Wizard of Oz to see a little man, literally a man, with a big megaphone. And these kids are just snarky, and they just tell their parents how silly their ideas are. Of course, the parents don't listen. But the kids have an insight that the adults lack. So I was imagining, what kind of letters would those kids write to a conventional God? So I'm just going to read a couple of these. Dear God, my friend Ram has a picture of you with an elephant head. My dad says it's because you're a Republican. Dear God, my big brother says the reason Jesus' tomb was empty is because he donated his body to science. Is that true? Dear God, my rabbi says you like Israel more than any other country. My teacher is making me write a report on Venezuela. Please don't be mad at me. Let's see if there's anything else I want to share. So, okay, you know in the rapture, you know what the rapture is? So at the rapture, the true believers are taken to heaven and they go naked, right? Their clothes are left behind, neatly folded, from what I've read. I don't know how that happens, but if the people don't fold them, they're just folded. So, dear God, if my clothes are left behind at the rapture, does it matter if I wear clean underwear? Okay, one last one. These are so, obviously I wrote them, I think I'm funny. So, dear God, I have a friend who is a Sikh, and he gets to carry a cool sword, because Sikhs carry the little sword. I have a friend who is a Sikh, and he gets to carry a cool sword. My mom won't even let me use scissors. Can you tell her I'm really a Sikh? So, if you can get people laughing at their own beliefs, once they start chuckling, once they start laughing at them, their brain chemistry actually changes. I mean, there's a science behind what we're doing, that when you laugh, your breathing changes, and that changes your brain chemistry. And according to the people I talked to about laughter and brain chemistry, it actually makes you more open to new possibilities. So when you go in and you take something that people see as so serious, and without attacking it directly, just using it in such a way that allows people to see the humor in it, that causes them to, it's like a mini Kundalini yoga practice, right? Where you're doing the Kundalini yoga breathing, but it's through laughter, and then maybe you open up to something else. Now, I've done lots of this stuff in places where, other than the Occidental University, where no one thought I was funny. I've done it in other places, and I've never had people not laugh. I've never been invited back a second time, but still, I did, no one hung me when it was over. So I think this is a way to resist the madness of what's going on in the world. I know that there are some people who are, well, one person in particular who isn't interested in religion, is interested in politics, and takes President Trump's tweets as if they were sent to him personally, like private. So when the president talks about, build the wall or whatever he's talking about, this guy replies, he says, oh, Donald, yeah, the wall, I forgot, you haven't talked about that in a while. And he just has a conversation as if that he was friends with Donald Trump, and he just goes to such an extreme that the tweet that he writes undermines the seriousness of the tweet that the president sent out. So how much difference that makes, I have no idea. But I think humor is a positive thing. So that's my way of resisting. So let's just take a look at the Holy Rascal Manifesto. So you have a copy. And I guess we're going to put a copy on the website so that those who are watching this on the internet can see what we're talking about. But I'm going to read it to you anyway. It's not that long, but we're going to take it chunk by chunk, and then I'll just open this up for conversation. So just the logo at the top, you see it says Order of the Holy Rascal. Sapere Aude is our motto. It's Latin. I have no idea what it means because it's Latin. I think it means I forgot where I parked my Audi, but it's either that or it means dare to know. So I'm going to go with dare to know. That's what Immanuel Kant said it meant. And I don't know if I want to call him a logo. I don't think that's the right word, but our guru is Nasruddin. So there's a wonderful book of Nasruddin stories on the side table here by Jamal Rahman. So Jamal, he's been here, right? I think he's been here. Well, if he hasn't, he should. You should bring him here. Jamal Rahman is one of the country's leading Sufi scholars, but he's written books about Sufism in general. But he is the master of Nasruddin stories. And when you invite him to talk about Nasruddin, he gives you the biographical material and the philosophical material all through the stories of Nasruddin. So I'll just share one so you get an idea of who this character was. He may or may not have been an actual historical character. Stories about him are everywhere in the Islamic world. He's just very famous, even if he's a fictional character. And he teaches through humor. So, for example, one night, Nasruddin, sorry, I'm getting over bronchitis here. So you in the front row, why not move back? But I'm not contagious anymore. Nasruddin is outside under a gaslight, on all fours, looking around on the ground, just sort of digging around in the dirt under the light. And someone walks by and says, Mullah Nasruddin, what are you doing? He goes, I'm looking for my keys. He goes, let me help you look. So this other fellow gets down and he starts looking with Nasruddin for his keys. And then another person comes by, They have a whole crowd of people all on the ground, crawling around on all fours, looking for the keys that Nasruddin lost. And after a while, then they haven't found anything, and someone says, Nasruddin, where did you drop the keys exactly? And he says, I dropped them in my house. He says, well, why are we out here? Because the light is better out here. Right? So the key, obviously, if I explain this, it's sort of unnecessary maybe, but the key, the spiritual key we're looking for, is inside, but we go where the light is, as if the light is going to really reveal anything to us, when we know that it's in the dark night of the soul, or what I think we're going through is a dark night of the globe, where everything is collapsing. It's the Kali Yuga, where all the things that we've hung on to for safety are being stripped away, and the whole world is falling apart. That's the time when you find the truth that's greater than any religion. The truth that I think the saying, there is no religion higher than truth, that truth is revealed, not in the light, but in the dark. So going into the dark is scary. Nasruddin helps us understand that it's necessary, and he does it with humor. So let's take a look at the manifesto. Religiosity is the human capacity for making meaning out of the raw facts of human existence. Big religion has abandoned the making in order to worship the made. So I want to make a distinction between religiosity and religion. Religion, by religion, I mean the brand name religions that exist. Religiosity is the human capacity for spiritual development, for spiritual awakening, for making meaning out of life. I think that religion at its best is a way to help us make meaning. I don't think that life has meaning, and you discover it. I think that we humans are a way that nature makes meaning, because that's what we do. We're meaning-making beings. But what happens is we make meaning, and then we build a religious structure around it, and then the meaning that we made becomes fixed by the structure. And so what I'm saying is big religion has abandoned the making in order to worship the made. So, Jesus never says, worship me in the Bible. Jesus only says, follow me. The religion that about Jesus, Christianity in various forms, talks about worshiping Jesus. But Jesus himself doesn't say that. Jesus says, take up your cross and follow me. In other words, do what I do. And he even says somewhere, if you do what I do, you'll do even better than I did. So it's about action, but not necessarily belief and not necessarily following. So I'm claiming that big religion, brand name religion, has abandoned the making in order to worship the made. At its best, big religion can be a community of the curious, calling us to a unity beyond dogma and tribalism. At its worst, big religion worships the very things that divide us and pits us one against one another in the name of one fantasy or another. Holy Rascals help big religion be its best by trying to point out that you're dividing the world up based on just imaginary stories. I'm not saying that Jesus never lived. It's irrelevant to me whether Jesus is historical or not. I'm less interested in the Jesus of Nazareth than I am in the Jesus of narrative. The gospel Jesus, the red letter Jesus, where you get, Bible has Jesus' words in red, that Jesus really interests me. And for the most part, that Jesus is a holy rascal. He's taking the religion of his time, the Judaism of his time, and he's exploding it from the inside by taking the teachings of the rabbis and the priests and then taking them to a level that no one had thought of before, or at least we don't have historical records. So, he takes the notion of love your neighbor as yourself, which must have meant, when someone originally said it, literally your neighbor, meaning your fellow Jews. But Jesus takes it and says, who's your neighbor? And then he tells you the Good Samaritan story. Well, the Jews hated the Samaritans. When people heard that story, they were not going to accept it at face value. So I actually have, I don't know if I can find it quickly enough. I didn't know that was going to come up. But I have the original version of that story as Jesus actually told it. But of course, there's no way. Let's see if this is it. If it isn't, I'm going to move on. But if it is, and it isn't. So if you look at the book, you'll find somewhere in here the original story of the Good Samaritan. And basically, it's a recording, a transcript of the recording of what he actually said and what the crowd said. So, something that there was, once a man going down from Jerusalem. Where was he going, Jesus? Why was he doing it? And then Samaritan came. Why was he there? Just people wouldn't just take it at face value. And I try to show how frustrating it must have been to be Jesus trying to teach these people this idea that is so far beyond their tribal mindset. But big religion is supporting the tribal mindset, and the rascals are trying to explode it. Again, religions are all, and I know that religions can be at their best or close to it. So progressive religions, progressive Christianity, liberal Judaism. But still, if you push hard enough, it's still about who's in and who's out. And it's still about divisions. And I'd like to just do away with that. So the second paragraph, using humor, play, and fearless joy, holy rascals free people from idolatry and open them up to the creative art of meaning-making at the heart of human religiosity. If you can get people to take control of ritual and symbol and say, look, there are a few things that all human beings do. We eat. How do we make eating holy? So maybe it's the diet. Maybe we don't eat meat. Maybe we don't do, but we can have a discussion on that. How do we make eating holy? What kind of blessing would you say to make a meal more than just filling your stomach? But if you focus on, when I was in the Air Force, which you didn't list, but when I was an Air Force chaplain, and every day you had to go to morning briefing. And every day at morning briefing, the chaplains broke the First Amendment to the Constitution by ending every one of their prayers with, "In Jesus' name we pray." And there were like 30 of them at this one base I was at. And every morning they would do it. One of them would say, "In Jesus' name we pray." And then they would all turn around and look at me and say, "We dare you to do anything about this." And I would say, you could pray in any name you want. To me, Vedanta Hinduism is closer to the truth than anything else, where Krishna says, "I don't care what you call me, I'm the only one here." Call me Jesus, I know, okay, fine. Call me, Allah, call me Yahweh, call me whatever it is, I'm the only one here. So I never challenged them, but they could not pray without that tagline, because they believed somewhere, even if you asked them personally, is this really true? Does God not listen to you if you don't say the magic phrase? And they would say, well, but they can't, they're too afraid not to say the magic phrase. And I remember it was years ago, but the Southern Baptist Convention came out with a thing that God does not hear the prayer of Jews. And it wasn't that God rejects the Jews, it was that God only hears the prayer that has "In Jesus' name we pray" on it. And Jews don't say that, therefore God doesn't hear them. When I heard that originally, I thought it's because Jews mumble their prayers. I used to go to synagogue with my dad. He's deceased now, but he was very religious. We'd go every day. And he would speed read through the prayers, and I go, no wonder God doesn't hear them. He's mumbling. I can't even hear it, and I'm standing next to him. We welcome all religious teachings that promote dignity, justice, compassion, humility, respect, awe, and love for all beings. We reject all religious teachings that promote fear, hatred, and the exploitation or demonization of the other. And we shun all gods who sanction violence in this world or the next. This seems to me like a no-brainer, but it's not true. Several years ago, more than several, we had, in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, where I live, we were like ground zero for the Islamophobic community. And we've had Muslims living in town for decades, but they wanted to move out of a little storefront mosque and actually build a large facility, among which there were many in our town, but they're all Christian. And there was a huge movement to block that. People just didn't want it. They ignored the fact that these people had been living in the community for 35 years, and they now said, we're being invaded by Muslims and we're taking over. So there was this whole thing about keeping the Muslims out, even though they were already there, but not letting them build a mosque. And so the university, Middle Tennessee State, had one of those Abrahamic religion panels that was supposed to show, oh, we all get along. So there was a couple of Methodists and myself and our local imam. And we all got along because we all knew each other anyway, and it was fine, it was nice, and turns out that we don't really want to kill each other. And so a couple of weeks later, the newspaper ran a letter to the editor by someone who was in that panel, in the auditorium, listening to the panel. And he wrote this letter, and he said, he named us by name, and he said that he was writing to us directly, he says, you were very honest and open in this panel, but what about in print? Would you dare to say off campus what you said on campus? And he challenged the four of us to denounce in writing in the newspaper violence in the name of God. Okay, so we had a little meeting. We went to one of the Methodist centers on campus, and we had coffee, and the two Methodist ministers, myself and the imam. And before we'd even finished a cup of coffee, we had all written a statement. And it said, we, the undersigned, denounce all religion done in the name of God. Period. Right? All violence. Did I say it right? Yeah. We, the undersigned, denounce all violence done in the name of God. And then we signed it. It was really simple. And the guy who challenged us was there also. So he said, okay, he was satisfied. I wasn't satisfied. I thought, well, if this was so simple, let's add 6 more words to it. And I said, let's say, we the undersigned denounce all violence done in the name of God in this world and the next. And then we had a huge argument. They agreed that it was wrong to use God to kill each other in this life, but they were not willing to say that God doesn't torture us in the next life. And I said, I don't get it. Why can't you say that? Why can't you renounce hells, and why can't you renounce punishment because someone believes differently than you do? And they both said, the Christians and the Muslim, they all said to me, that's God's business. And my response, not very politic, but my response was, you made that God up, and it's not God's business, it's your business. Make up a better God. Imagine a God who doesn't like torturing people. How hard is that? Turned out we couldn't do it. So that part of the statement was never written. People are so attached, if they at least to that notion that they'll win in the afterlife. It may be that they can't defeat you in this world, but you will be defeated in the next. We call upon all people of every religion to cleanse their texts and teachings of violence, injustice, and hatred, to boldly speak out when their religion is hijacked by hate, and to continually move their religion beyond the zero-sum worldview of us against them and toward the non-zero worldview of all of us together. Every religious tradition, and we don't have a copy of it here, but in my last book that came out before Holy Rascals, the World Wisdom Bible, has a whole section on the shadow side of religious texts. All the horrible things that are said in so-called sacred texts. And they're misogynist, and they're violent against the stranger, and all these kinds of things. And my idea was, we have to cleanse our texts of these things, because when you hear them in a sacred space, even if there's no commentary going on, it just gets stuck in your head, and you just accept them without any kind of resistance. But we have to resist those things. We have to resist them when they come in a political setting. You have to resist them when they come in a spiritual setting. You have to think about what you're being asked to say and what you're reading, and then challenge it when it's clearly it's clearly devoid of any kind of ethics, and it's just about destroying those who you want to destroy. So when I was a congregational rabbi, I went to my synagogue board and I said, let's go through the Torah and take out all the parts that are just ugly. Now, they would not have been opposed to that. That's not the way I put it. I said, let's get a big, thick magic marker and blot out all the parts that are really horrible. And they said, you know how much money we spent on one of those scrolls? They cost thousands and thousands of dollars. You're not taking a magic marker to the parchment. And I said, okay, but let's then rethink how we use it. So in a Jewish setting, there's a set reading every week. And if you have a bar or bat mitzvah, the kid reads whatever section comes up that week, even if it's a section about violence or about leprosy or all kinds of misogynist. It doesn't matter what it is. It's the reading for the week, so you have to read it. And then the kid tries to make a sermon on it that makes it sound better than it actually is. And I said, I'm not doing that. Let's go through the Bible, find 51 good readings, make those our weekly readings, so that when our children have to do a Bible reading and a commentary, at least they're reading something we can stand behind, something that's universal, something that's positive. It's about justice, it's about compassion, it's about love, it's about peace. And let them riff on that and not try to make some kind of sense out of, wiping out every man, woman, child, and cow of the Amalekites. Don't make them defend genocide. My board went with that. But I've brought that to a lot of synagogues and a lot of places. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. I'm going to wrap it up with this. I don't want to throw the Bible out. I don't want to throw the Quran or the Gita or any of these things out. I want to use them in a more intelligent way. I want to read them through the lens of Carl Jung or Joseph Campbell, seeing them as metaphor rather than taking them literally. And when you get to those dark things, I want to use them in adult study, not with little kids. The dark stuff that's in our sacred text reflects the dark stuff that's in us. And so it mirrors it back to us. So it's worth looking at, but not little kids. They can't understand it. They're just going to accept it, whereas we might be able to wrestle with it and use it as a means to reflect back to us the evil that we're capable of. We take Bible stories, for example, and we turn them into little kids' stories, which they weren't written for little kids. I mean, just imagine you go to any bookstore and there's the story of Noah. And it's always little kid version. And, there's this, I can't sing the song from camp, but, Noah brought the animals on the ark and all that kind of stuff. But think about what was actually happening. It was this global genocide. All humans, all animals were destroyed except for, one alcoholic and his family. And the animals he could fit on a boat. I imagine them, the ark had no windows, only one window, I think. And I think the reason for that was, because imagine if it was like a cruise ship and you could go out and lean on the edge and look over the side and see the ocean, and you see, oh, look, there's cousin Chaim bloated and dead from the flood. And you see all the other animals, just all gross and distorted, and all the human beings. It's not for kids. Whatever that story may mean, and it may have some deep psychological value, it's not going to be something that a 4-year-old is going to read. So we take the horror out of it, which means we take the meat out of it, and we leave the kids with something simplistic and silly. When in fact, maybe it's meant to be a reflection of the dark side of our own natures that we can wrestle with. So the whole idea of Holy Rascals is to push back on big religion, push back on this sort of silly way of promoting religion, sort of a thoughtless way of promoting religion, and to really say, as Theosophy does, there is no religion higher than truth, and not to allow ourselves to be satisfied with anything less than truth, and just because it's our story. So I'm going to stop with that, open it up to see if anybody wants to talk about anything. You're welcome.
If you do have a question, just raise your hand and I'll bring you the microphone so that we can record the question.
We'll take the second question first. It's hard to be the first one, so we'll take the second one first.
So do you think down the road a little bit, the Holy Rascals will morph into something like an evil laughing religion, some sort of
will it become another corrupt thing? Yeah. Right? I mean, probably, if it actually got to be an organization like that, organizations tend to corrupt. As soon as there's power involved, then the whole thing gets corrupted. So then you'll have to have the more rascally holy rascals, Yeah, I think that's just human nature that we do that. So thanks for depressing me.
You spoke about truth. How would you define truth, or how would someone be able to discern truth?
Yeah, so for me, and right away that means it's not truth, right? Here's my unfiltered answer. Truth is that which aligns you with all life in such a way that you can only act with compassion and justice. If whatever they're teaching me doesn't do that, then it's not true. So that's my off the top of my head answer. What would be yours if I turned it around? And you can always just agree with me because I'm always right.
Yeah. Well, I think that was very nicely put. But for me, it's just like if something resonates within me and I recognize it as something meaningful or deeply impresses me, and I don't know how to describe it more than that, but it's a very deep impression of, I know this is real. And I know it for myself, not because someone told me.
Yeah. What I love about spiritual practice as opposed to religion, meditation, things like that, if it's done the way I was taught it should be done, it takes you out of the box and puts you in a place where if you are resonating with something, it's because it is true and it is going to make you a more loving, compassionate human being. Yeah, I mean, the question is, can I get out of my psychological box and experience that? Or am I so afraid of doing that? I started Zen practice when I was 16 years old. And I had, beginner's luck. Suzuki Roshi wrote the book, Beginner's Mind. I have beginner's luck. So my first time out after I learned how to do it, I had this experience where Rami was gone. I mean, saying it's an experience is false because I wasn't there to experience it. But my sense of self was gone for, who knows, a fraction of a second, no idea. But when I came back, I felt absolutely connected to everything, and I felt a sense of compassion for and from everything. And that was an unshakable truth. I was 16, nothing's ever made me doubt that experience. And anything that someone tells me, if it doesn't promote that interconnectedness and the compassion and the justice, then I'm assuming, based on my own experience, that it's not true. The problem with that is, what do I know? I mean, there's always that humility that, well, maybe you're wrong. Maybe, in fact, there is, one way, and the very, very Orthodox Jews have it, and I'm screwed. So, I mean, in Judaism, we don't really have the hell, so I'm not all that worried about it. But if you go by the numbers, I mean, there are more Christians than anything else in the world. How could they all be wrong? I mean, when you think about it, I'm saying that, what are there, 2.2 billion Christians? I'm not sure the number. But whatever the number is, I'm saying they're all wrong. If you think that as Jesus is understood to have said, I am the way and the truth and the life, and no one gets to the Father except through me, if you understand that in the egoic sense, that Jesus is talking about himself as a second person of the Trinity, and I'm saying that's false. I mean, that's incredibly chutzpahdik for me to say, right? I mean, that's like, what do I know? How can I deny that? How can I deny the truth of 1.2 billion Muslims who say that the final revelation from God is the Holy Quran? But I go, no. What do I know? So you have to be very humble about that. But not so humble that I change my mind. I still know I'm right. I just don't want to admit it too often because it's not humble. So I could be wrong. No. Oh, you found the Good Samaritans thing? What page is it?
88.
Page 88. So she's giving this to me so I can give you an example of, this is the true, this is the true story of the Good Samaritan. Jesus says, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when robbers attacked him. What was his name, Jesus? Why did he go from Jerusalem to Jericho? What the hell is there to do in Jericho? I don't know. Anyway, he took his clothes. What was he wearing? Was it nice stuff? And they beat him senseless and left him for dead. Damn robbers! Where are those centurions when you need them? Yeah, okay, I don't know. Anyway, a priest was going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. Bastard! That's what they were doing leaving Jerusalem. There's no temple in Jericho. Maybe he wasn't a priest at all. How do you know he was a priest, Jesus? I don't know. It's a story. He was a priest. So then a Levite happened by and did the same thing. What was his name? I'd like to report these people. I don't know their names. Their names don't matter. Why not? Are you saying all priests and Levites are heartless scoundrels? I'm down with that. No, but a Samaritan. A Samaritan? Those heretics? Why are you talking about them? Priests and Levites are bad enough. Well, look, this Samaritan took pity on the man and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Red wine or white? What wine goes with wounds? Don't be silly, Jesus says. He was trying to help the man by dousing him in alcohol. That's why I only go to Jewish doctors, even if a Samaritan is on my plan. Then Jesus says, then he put the man on his own donkey. The man had a donkey? Why didn't the robbers take the donkey along with his clothes? No, it was a Samaritan's donkey. Oh, you have to be more clear about these things. Anyway, the Samaritan brought the man to an inn and took care of him. What was the name of the inn, Jesus? I don't know. I don't think there was an inn on the road to Jericho. Did anyone build one recently? I haven't been to Jericho in ages. Not since my wife... All right, Jesus. Enough, stop. Forget the story. Who's your neighbor? Your neighbor is someone who does nice things. Okay, get it? The guy who lives next door to me is a schmuck. Does that mean he's not my neighbor? Jesus goes, ah. That's probably how it really happened. Comments, questions, anybody else? You're not going to hear that one on a Sunday morning. Ever see the movie Life of Brian? Yeah, that's sort of what they do with Life of Brian. There's two ways to tackle religion. One is Bill Maher's way. Ever watch the movie Religulous? So Religulous makes fun of religion. I'm trying not to do that. I'm having fun with it, but I'm not trying to make fun of it. Religulous, Bill Maher hates religion, and he finds the least intelligent people to represent religion and then makes fun of them. So if you remember the movie, you've seen the movie, and it's worth watching because it is funny, but you have to know what he's doing. So he's in a Christian gift store, and he's talking to the owner, and he says to the owner, come on, do you really think that Jonah was swallowed by a whale? And the guy says, no, of course not. And Bill Maher is surprised. He goes, oh. And the guy says, he was swallowed by a big fish. It doesn't say whale, it says big fish, which is true. So, he finds people like that. He doesn't know what to do when he finds someone who's more thoughtful. He's in Rome, and it looks like he just found this priest walking in the Vatican, and he goes over, he's an elderly guy, and he goes over to the priest, and they're walking, and he asks him questions, like, and I don't know if these are actually the questions, but this is still gives you a sense of what the scene was like. So he asks the priest, do you really believe in the virgin birth, that a virgin can have a baby? And the priest goes, of course not. And he kept going, this is all about raspberries, this guy. And he starts asking him all these classic questions, and the priest says no to every one of them. And he's trying to show Bill that these are not to be taken literally. It's myth, it's metaphor, it's not science. And you can see Bill Maher doesn't know what to do with that, because he needs the religious person to be a literalist in order for him to make fun of the person. Life of Brian, on the other hand, which is the Monty Python movie, they don't do that. They try to show you, more like I did in that little story with the Good Samaritan, they have a scene in Monty Python in the Life of Brian where it's the Sermon on the Mount. So, there's hundreds and hundreds of people, and Jesus is on this little mountain, and he's giving the Sermon on the Mount. But you can't hear him, right? They don't have, speakers and microphones and stuff. So if you're up close, Jesus is saying, "Blessed are the peacemakers." But Monty Python's people are in the back, and they're going, "What did he say? Blessed are the cheesemakers? Why cheesemakers? What kind of cheese?" And they're going on and on about blessed are the cheesemakers, and they're trying to make a whole philosophical thing around cheese making. And it's brilliant because it shows you how we don't know what Jesus said, assuming he was there. I think he is a historical figure, but we don't know what he said, and we don't know how people understood it. And to take it all at face value may be to miss the deeper points. And that's what we're trying to do with Holy Rascals, is go deeper into this stuff, using humor to do it, not Bill Maher's hammer over the head. Anybody else?
Well,
Thank you.
maybe a hand of appreciation for that. Wonderful.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And if you love the approach, you can buy the book.
Delightful. Thank you so much, Rabbi Rami. We do have many of Rabbi Rami's, or a selection of the titles, different titles available there. And of course, Holy Rascals is definitely there. And if you'd like to purchase a copy this evening, they are reduced and they're available, and Rabbi Rami can also sign them for you. Yeah, that $10 comes to me. We invite you to join Rabbi Rami on Saturday, this coming Saturday. He's doing a day-long, starts at 10:30 in the morning, goes through to about 4. There'll be breaks and things, but it's a day-long workshop on searing love, return of Sophia, and the divine feminine. And, Rabbi Rami's got a vast, he's just got a vast repertoire of information, knowledge and insights and practices. And he'll help explore the Judeo-Christian teachings of Lady Wisdom and invite us to engage in practices that can awaken us to her presence within and without.
John, let me just jump in 1 second.
Yeah.
It's a huge leap from Holy Rascals to the Divine Mother. So Holy Rascals is my approach to religion. I've been having encounters with the Divine Mother in many different forms since the 90s. And my understanding is from other teachers that one of the hallmarks of our time is the return of the Divine Feminine. And we're going to explore what we have of her teachings in the Bible, but also other things that she's been doing lately to lead us into this dark night of the globe, lead us through this dark night of the globe into hopefully a new level of awakening and consciousness. So where this was fun and hopefully funny, the other will be fun, but in a very different way. We're really going to look at and practice things to experience the divine feminine within and without.
Excellent, thank you. So if you'd like to participate in that, please just go to the website and you can still register. Tell your friends as well. We've got a big hall. We can accommodate quite a large number of people. But if you are intending to come, I do encourage you to register online before Saturday morning. I'm always surprised at people who leave it to the very last minute to register, but register online. Of course, if you want to come without registering, that's fine too. You're always welcome. Thursday next week, we will have William Meader, and he will be speaking on esoteric astrology, revealing the soul's intention. And William is one of the most influential and respected international teachers of esoteric philosophy, and he was here last year, and he's been coming on a somewhat regular basis, and he will be here next Thursday, and also staying for a few days with us, doing a workshop and some astrological readings. If you are free and are interested, please join us Thursday next week. And I thank you for coming out this evening. Have some refreshments, buy a book, get it signed, and ask those questions that you haven't asked us yet. Thank you all.